Okay, now you can see where I've cleaned the clock. I've run it through an ultrasonic cleaner. I've kept all of the individual parts separated, and so you can sort of see the quality of the clean with this special solution that I mixed up. Ammonia, Murphy soap, acetone, and one other I just can't remember at the moment, but it brings it good and clean. You notice I've also created this block that I've put each of the clock mechanisms in, the gear and shaft. And what I did is I took this picture, like this is the time side, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if this is time side, I basically laid it out as you see it, and it helps me better understand what goes where. Now the next steps are to individually clean and polish the pivots. Now a pivot, this is an example of a pivot here. It's this little fine area here. This is where the wear occurs. Sometimes you can feel the wear on your fingernail as you drag across it. But I've got to look at each end here, and then where it rides here, to determine the condition of the pivots. And like in this case, this is the pivot right here on the end. If you can see that, try to hold my hand under it. Right there, that's a pivot on the end, and this is a pivot here as well. And what happens is you get gunk in all of these little gears, and the gunk is really just dust and oil, which you don't oil these. You oil the pivots, and whenever they're over oiled, the oil gets in places it shouldn't be in, and the result is it slows the clock down, or it makes it quit. Now look at this one. If you see that, it looks like this one's going to require just a bit more cleaning, because that's not as clean as it really should be. It gives me this idea that there's still stuff in it. But that's the stuff we'll look at. And then again, pivots. See, this one looks a little nasty. We'll clean the pivot up. And then this is the pallet. This is where the time actually, you hear the tick-tock, and see how shiny this is. You see how shiny that is. We'll make sure that these are good and clean and smooth, and then we'll clean these pivots here as well. Now another thing that I got to figure out how to do is, now as we get a little bit more closer here to doing work, each one of these little holes represents a bushing. And what I've got to do is I've got to examine how that's, matter of fact, that's the center one, so this one goes here, and then you see the wobble that's there. You got to look at how much wobbles and directions, and is it even all the way around, and then is there too much? So that's something that I'm learning about. But if it happens to be too much, then what you do is this gets drilled out and you put a bushing in it. And I made a tool specifically to do that as well. But every one of these have to be examined with their respective pivot. And then once that's evaluated and everything is clean, the inside of those holes, the inside of the holes, the pivots, then we'll be ready to sort of go back in and try to do some assembly. Now, this is, if you recall, the chime side. When I was pulling it out, I was having a dickens of a time, and here's why. It's because it's torn. You see that? See how it's torn? But it's interesting because it looks like it's been repaired before. That's a drill hole, and if you notice, see this? There's it's been heated to where it looks like they might have cut a new hole in it, and then the way it was cut over time with all that tension, it just tore out. This other one is much better. See how it's round? You don't create those tension spots. So I might just cut this off here, make sure if I can drill, I'll drill another hole like that one and then reuse the spring, and if that works, I won't have to buy a new one. Otherwise, I will see about buying a new one and replacing this one. Then that becomes a process of how thick is it, how long is it, what is this thickness here. You see what I'm talking about? The thickness here and all that is what defines the power that goes into the chime side. See how they're still separated into their respective buckets. So that's it for now, and I will be back soon. Okay, today the goal is to repair the spring, and if it's doable, we'll use it. This is the chime side spring. This is the time side spring. What I'm going to end up doing this kind of pattern on this spring around the edge, and I'll create a hole similar to this. And you'll notice that springs are hardened steel, and you can see it's hardened all through here. Now there's some cleaning I think I'm going to try to continue to do with that. But when you heat the end of it, you notice how this end becomes less blued, so it takes the temper out of the steel. And by taking the temper out of the steel, you can drill it. Now, since I have a machine shop, it doesn't matter. I have the tooling necessary to cut the hole in a hardened piece of steel. So I'm going to go out to the shop now and see about repairing this. Okay, the repair was successful. I was able to remove the end and then reshape the end and reinstall a hole. And you'll notice that it looks like similar to the other one. So I've reshaped the end, you see. And this one here, it looks like I'm going to probably need to clean up just a little bit before I put it back in. Now, both of them. Next step is seeing if this is going to come off, and I need to clean it because that's really a dried grease. And the way we do that is I'll end up taking one of these green scour pads, fold it over with a chemical on it, and then basically run it the length and get it clean. I'll be right back. Okay, for this next step, I have 3 solvents. I don't know which one I'm going to ultimately use. I'm going to start with a lacquer thinner and see if that works. If not, I'll do acetone, and then I have alcohol. But I think the better answer is going to be to start with this lacquer thinner to do the cleaning, and just to give you an idea, you see the sludge build up. I just put some of this acetone on it and fold this over and see what happens. Doesn't look like it's changing it very much at all. Again, I'm in an experiment mode, trying to decide what's going to work best. And that doesn't look like it's really changed it much. Okay, so that was the first step. So cap up the lacquer thinner, move to acetone. Acetone is a parts cleanup. Let's see how this works. Move to another section. These are volatile substances, and you need to be very careful handling them. Definitely wear gloves. Read the instructions on the bottles. Okay. Let's see what we think about that. It's cleaner. The goal is to get the whole spring clean, and once you clean that, we'll grease it and reassemble it into the drum, and we'll be back. I'll show you how to put it in the drum. Might have found a little bit easier way of applying it. And it's really just, you know, you've got it all over my hands anyway, so just sort of put the grease on, right? Push the spring out like this. And you know, I don't know that you necessarily need a ton of grease, right? But you definitely want this to be functioning smoothly once we get it all back together. But if you see what I've done here, if I just push it out like that, oops, this is sharp. If you just push it out like that, what you end up getting is a pretty even coverage of this grease over the area. So I've already done the other spring, and I'm liking the way this looks on that side. When I push it out, you see it's also on the inside. So I've found a way to be able to grease it. Be right back. Okay, we're back. It just took a little finagling. I had to take it all out and capture it and stick it back in, and it's together now. This little feature makes it nice because you can sort of pull it out. So where I am now is I'm just basically, I was tightening the spring, but it popped loose from the arbor. Okay, so the arbor is no longer capturing it. Oh, wait a minute. A couple of things went on. It looks like I lost the lock on my barrel. Okay, the other one went in so much easier. But we'll get there. We will get there. So now I'm trying to get the outside one captured again. I'll just let you stick with me for a bit to show you it's not all fun and cookies. There. So what I just did there is, there's your pen. I just aligned, and you heard it click. Okay, so there, it's grabbed it. Now the next step is I've got to get the arbor to do the same thing. So if you see what I did, I pulled the pen, okay, and now the arbor, I got to get that to connect it and stay connected in a good way while we apply pressure. There, I got it connected. So now the idea is, with that connected, and I'm getting it to provide torsion now. With that connected, I'm going to put the pen back up. You can see the hole. I'm going to maintain some tension on it to where it stays attached. This is what I did last time. Snug the clamp. Again, do not put over pressure on it. Line the hole with the tension. There it is. Line. Okay. And I've got all this now. Now the machine holds it. Keep this pushed in and snug it down. See, practice makes perfect. But it'll probably do something else. Now it's just a matter of continuing the tightening. And if those lugs have captured the spring properly, it'll allow us to complete the job. And it looks like this time it has. So what we're looking for is pulling that out. If you can see see the grease. I don't know if you can see that, but the grease has now distributed itself. I'm going to adjust it. I'm going to release the spring now to be captured by the barrel. And that is a success. Okay. Do some releasing of some attach points. This is a relatively safe machine. It seems to contain everything that I'm working on. So. Arbor out. There's the arbor. Get the barrel and spring out. Show you that. Okay, there it is installed. Now the arbor should go in. Okay, now the question is, now what do you do to get this piece installed? Because if you'll notice, it doesn't want to go. So I typically take that out to a vise and put it in a clamp it in a vise like that, and then just turn it and clamp it as I go, and it just pops right back in. I'll be right back.